Hi, I'm Gino. Almost every country around the world has national debt. It sounds scary, but debt is not a bad thing. Let's understand this with a simple family example. Most families borrow money to buy a house, pay for education, or cover unexpected bills. No one pays off every penny of debt all at once, and that's completely normal. Countries work in exactly the same way. Governments have ongoing expenses, so they also need to borrow money. This kind of government borrowing is what we call national debt. So what is national debt exactly? Simply, the government borrows from all kinds of investors. When government spending exceeds its tax revenue, it faces a funding gap. To fill this gap, it issues government bonds, which are basically official IOUs. Regular people, banks, fund institutions, and even other countries can buy these bonds. You lend money to the government and earn steady annual interest. When the bond term ends, you get your full principal back. The total amount of all these borrowed funds forms the national debt. You might wonder, why do countries borrow money instead of saving up? History gives us the most straightforward answer. Almost every sharp rise in national debt happens during major national crises. We can take U.S. historical data as a clear example. American Civil War. National debt jumped from $65 million to $2.7 billion. World War II. Debt surged from $51 billion to $260 billion. Global financial crisis. Debt rose from $9 trillion to $14 trillion. 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. Debt spiked from $23 trillion to $27.8 trillion in just 1 year. These cases reveal a simple truth. National debt is not wasteful government spending. It's a practical tool for countries to get through crises and keep society running. First, public services cannot stop. Schools, roads, hospitals, and pensions require continuous funding every year. Tax revenue alone is never enough to cover all these costs. Second, emergencies happen unexpectedly. Wars, financial crises, and disasters need massive, immediate funding. Borrowing money quickly stabilizes the whole society. Third, countries need continuous development. Infrastructure construction creates jobs and drives economic growth. Fourth, government bonds provide a safe investment option for ordinary people. Without national debt, the entire financial system would lose a stable anchor. So how do we tell if a country's debt is safe or dangerous? We never judge debt by its total amount. The only reliable standard is the debt to GDP ratio. This ratio tells us whether a country can afford its debt burden. Real U.S. historical data can help us understand this clearly. First, super safe period. In 1981, the ratio was only 31.8%. The economy was strong and debt pressure was extremely low. Second, temporary high. In 1946, the World War II peak ratio hit 106%. It looked high, but it was totally reasonable temporary war spending. After the war, the economy boomed and the ratio dropped rapidly. Third, modern risky high. In 2025, the ratio reaches 123%, even higher than the World War II peak. The biggest problem? There is no war or major crisis to explain this high debt. Debt keeps growing while economic growth slows down, bringing hidden risks. So here is the simple rule. Short-term crisis debt is safe. Long-term excessive debt is risky. So, is national debt a good thing or a bad thing? Actually, national debt has no inherent good or bad nature. Everything depends on whether the debt is moderate or excessive. First, moderate debt benefits every ordinary person. It helps build better roads, hospitals, and schools for the public. It provides people with a zero-risk investment option. It stabilizes jobs and the overall economy during tough periods. Second, excessive debt hurts everyone in the long run. Too much debt pushes up commodity prices and slowly erodes people's savings. Governments may raise taxes to afford huge interest payments. Welfare and pension budgets will also be cut down. Simply put, controlled debt boosts national development. Uncontrolled excessive debt brings inflation and economic pressure. How do countries control debt risks and prevent debt from getting out of hand? We can understand these 4 practical methods through real U.S. fiscal operations. First, expand stable fiscal income. This means activating the economy and optimizing tax structures, not simply raising taxes. For example, in the booming 1990s, the U.S. stimulated business development and consumption to raise fiscal revenue steadily. Higher tax income reduces the need for new debt issuance. Second, cut ineffective and wasteful spending. Governments sort out redundant expenditures and cut useless subsidies and idle project costs. This avoids blind spending and lowers the demand for continuous borrowing. Third, control new debt issuance according to economic cycles. When the economy booms and tax revenue is sufficient, the U.S. actively reduces new bond issuance. Only during economic downturns or crises will it restart large-scale borrowing. Fourth, dilute debt through economic growth. This is the most fundamental solution. After World War II, the U.S. relied on rapid economic growth to quickly dilute its 106% high debt ratio. Strong economic growth can fully offset debt pressure. In rare surplus years, the government even repurchases old debts to reduce total debt scale. With rising national debt and growing inflation risks, how can ordinary people protect their savings? Here are 4 practical tips that everyone can use. Allocate a small part of your funds to government bonds. When debt risks rise, stocks and wealth products fluctuate wildly, while bonds stay stable. They guarantee principal and interest and hedge against inflation losses. Do not hold all your assets in cash. Long-term high debt will inevitably cause mild inflation. Holding massive cash seems safe, but your wealth shrinks quietly every year. Stay away from high-interest consumer debt. In a high-debt environment, market interest rates and risks become unstable. High-interest loans will only add extra burden to your life. Diversify your asset allocation. Never put all your money in a single asset like cash or stocks. Reasonable diversification helps you hedge economic fluctuations. A little economic common sense can help you avoid most wealth losses. Let's wrap up the core points in 4 simple rules. 1. National debt is normal. Nearly all countries run deficits and carry national debt to sustain public services, crisis relief, and economic construction. 2. Judge risks by debt ratio, not total scale. Total debt means nothing. The debt to GDP ratio truly reflects a country's real debt pressure. 3. Moderate debt helps. Excessive debt harms. Proper debt drives economic growth. Only long-term, crisis-free excessive debt triggers inflation and hidden financial risks. 4. Both countries and people have clear coping logic. Countries adjust revenue and spending to stabilize debt. Ordinary people use rational asset allocation to hedge risks and protect wealth. Debt is just a neutral economic tool, and its scale determines whether it benefits or harms the economy. If you like this plain and simple economic explanation, subscribe to our channel. We break down complex financial knowledge in easy-to-understand language. Thanks for watching. See you next time.